All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining our webinar today. We're so excited to talk through financing programs and different offerings that we're really excited to roll out to our solar installers. My name is Jordan Dollarhide, and I'm the Communications and Media Manager at BayWa RE. And with me today, I have Josh Tinaglia. He's our Financing Program Manager, and David Dunlap, who is our VP of Product Strategy. Josh, we're so excited to have you on this webinar. I know this is one of your first times being featured on our video platform. So would love if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you've been, and then also where you're heading at BayWa and what you're excited about.
For sure. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And not only excited to be here, but excited to be on the team. It's been a couple months now, so I'm just diving in, having a lot of fun. Great team to work with. So yeah, background really finance mostly. I actually really can't escape anything finance related. Started my career out in underwriting loans at General Motors, so I've really got a good grasp of how credit agency reporting work, how consumer debt works, loans, finance, etc. Eventually, I transitioned to solar and just ground rules started selling. And the fortunate thing about that was a lot of my former history in finance, auto finance, helped me explain the loan piece and the savings piece of solar to homeowners. So it was an easy transition for me. And it was a great thing to do. I love the solar industry. It's fantastic. And fast forward a little bit, and I got into distribution. And here I am now trying to help, not only our team understand finance more, but our installers understand finance more and how they could perhaps sell using finance as a tool. Because not everyone has the cash to fork over for a $40,000 plus system. So yeah, really excited about the programs we already have and the programs that we're trying to develop with new partners, and obviously trying to introduce split pay to the masses here and all of our customers to help folks cash flow and all that. So yeah, just excited to be here. Thank you, Jordan.
Awesome, Josh. Yeah, we're really excited to have you. And it sounds like you have a lot of experience that could benefit our installer network. So we're really excited to share that with everyone. David, I know, you've been around the block here. A lot of people have seen you on our platform, but would just love if you could just give a quick intro on yourself for anyone that, hasn't been introduced to you yet and what you're currently doing at BayWa RE.
Sure, Jordan. Happy to be here. David Dunlap, Vice President of Product Strategy. I've been in distribution, solar distribution, for coming up on 9 years now. And in that time with BayWa, I've run the procurement department, our whole operations arm, and now am focused primarily on our forward-looking product and technology roadmap. So understanding, scouring the market for our partnerships and our product offerings and how to position them for our installers. So that's kind of my primary focus. Most of the viewers, I think, know my background prior to solar was in custom home design and build. So I've been in construction, kind of know the landscape for the whole building environment at the residential scale. And it was kind of my personal mission in close to 2 decades of that work to advocate for renewable energies in our high-end custom homes. So was putting in solar thermal or solar electric, geothermal, kind of any opportunity to kind of get green building and energy advocacy into the built environment. So it's been a passion of mine for close on 30 years now.
David, and that passion shows every time you come on a webinar or a podcast talking about solar. So it's really awesome to hear more about your background and for you to give that context. Awesome. Well, all right, Josh, me personally, I tend to get split pay and direct pay completely confused. I think they're sometimes the same thing. I think that they're different. Sometimes I don't even think they're on the same planet. So if you could explain the benefits of each program and maybe even a brief history of these programs for those that are newer to the subject, and maybe outline just the possible big differences or anything else that you think's notable.
You're not alone, Jordan. There's a lot of confusion about what's split pay, what's direct pay, and all of that changed when the government came out with a program called direct pay. So let me go back. As about 5-6 years ago is when direct pay at the time really came to fruition. And what it is, interchangeably, I'm going to use it just for to be clear, direct pay and split pay, but back then called direct pay. It's where you as a contractor use your financing partners to essentially pay the distributor for their material. They're not paying for you on your behalf, but they're paying money that you would have been owed from the lender to pay for equipment. And what's great about that is because then any money you get from the lender for the rest of that loan is all yours. It's all straight operating cash that you get to apply towards forward thinking things in your business. You're not having to worry about terms or anything like that either, because the distributor typically isn't putting those orders on your terms because they know they're going to get paid by the distributor. So it got really popular, obviously. Equipment accounts for anywhere between 25 to 35% of a project, depending on what you're installing. So that's a big burden on you, the contractor, to pay for equipment up front before you get paid. So split pay is fantastic. It allows you to operate in a little bit more of a cash flow positive situation. Fast forward a little bit, more lenders are using it, more distributors are using it. Almost, I want to say every major distributor and lender has some semblance of a split pay or direct pay program. Recently, when the Investment Reduction Act came out, the White House administered the direct pay program. And that's where, separate subject, the tax credit that's available to those that own a solar system now can also apply to nonprofits. Previously, nonprofits couldn't get the tax credit.
Yeah.
So direct pay, what that became was like a rebate for nonprofits to utilize the tax credit, even though they don't have a tax appetite. So that's direct pay. We like to call it split pay now. So not to confuse the two, even though they're two very different things. But given that the direct pay program from the government is gaining in popularity, it's good to separate the two and call them split pay versus direct pay. So I'm hoping that kind of helps clear some of that water for you.
It does. It's a lot less murky, but you never know. I could also just get confused at some other point. But thank you. That's great. That's very clear. And I think that's very awesome for our installer base to hear. So now that you've kind of gone through the basics, can you tell our installers what you personally like about each program? And maybe even, given your background, it'd be awesome to maybe hear about your experience using these programs firsthand, in the businesses you've worked with.
For sure. Yeah. So I think it's a fantastic way for you to really avoid putting yourself in a situation where you're constantly having to take money you've received from a job today that you got paid on to pay off a job that you installed a month ago, right? So the net 30 terms thing you have with distributors can really put you in a position where you get used to paying debts and thinking retroactively. Whereas with split pay, you know exactly what money is yours. You receive it from the lender and your distributor has been paid. Your biggest bill has been paid. That's fantastic because then now you're operating, again, I'll say it over and over again, cash flow positive. All of the money that's coming in is for your operating cash flow. And you can then apply that towards, marketing or anything else forward thinking that's going to help you grow your business. Not only that, but also your terms aren't being used anymore. So if you have split pay with your distributor, you can use you can use split pay to pay for orders that don't go on your terms. You can save your terms for maybe your lenders who don't use split pay or cash jobs, or maybe you need to go out and buy some Q cables, some other stocking orders to help fill up the trucks that you just need on hand. No longer are you needing to use those or your credit terms for the jobs that you have with split pay. So I think that's a huge advantage. I'm really excited about that. And I guess, what was the second part of your question? Sorry, Jordan. I just get into the split pay piece.
Absolutely. It's really easy to get lost in that, I'm sure. But just sharing any experience you have using these programs firsthand, anything at all.
Of course. Yeah, no, I used it myself actually. So in between two distributors, I was working at an installer where we used it through Sunlight, actually one of our existing partners. And it's super helpful just to know that I can go into my portal with Sunlight and tell my distributor, hey, I'm going to pay you for this job. Here's the order you sent me. Kick it off my terms, leave that open because I got another job that I finance through a local credit union that doesn't do split pay. So that cleans up my books a little bit and just allows me to keep the ball moving forward, keeps my crews busy, all the good things. While it was a huge business I was working for, It helped us as a smaller installer because we didn't have the credit terms necessary with our distributor to make some orders. So it really freed us up the ability to negotiate better with our distributor and say, hey, I'm going to give you more of my business because now I can. I'm not limited by my terms. But I've seen it where on the other end, there's a larger installer who's using split pay. And they were, and I don't know how much I should say about this, but they were using split pay so much so that I think it was like 8 or 9 times what their credit terms were, they were using for split pay. So for example, let's say they had $100,000 credit limit. They had $800,000 to $900,000 worth of orders out for the month that were under split pay, totally paid for, constantly, just being in a place where we ship the material, they install it 7 to 10 business days later, we get paid, move on to the next thing. So they're able to scale their business incredibly quickly because we're not going to be a limiting factor for them as the distributor. So that success story we saw handfuls of times with contractors who are up and coming, or ones who are just trying to grow a little bit in this market. And as we've seen a lot of installers going out of business, there's a lot of room for growth for some of the ones that want to scale. And I think this is a really useful tool for that.
Yeah, it sounds like that split pay is a huge strategic advantage for solar installers to use for rapid growth, which I think in this market, like you said, is huge. And if you can utilize that in any way, it can take your business to new levels for sure. That's awesome. I forgot to mention earlier, everyone that's watching, if you use the Q&A function on here, you can ask questions and we'll answer them after we get through the meat of this. So please feel free to do that. And then we'll revisit those later on in this video. So now that we've gone through the basics, I think we're finally at the part that viewers are waiting for, which is the partnerships themselves. And I think it's time we unveil what we have cooking in our programs and what we think are most exciting. What do you think?
I'm down. Let's do it.
All right. Okay. So Josh, fill us in on these programs. Let's start with Sunlight. What is most exciting? What's coming up? What is it all about? Tell us all the stuff.
Yeah, of course. I name dropped them early already. So sorry to steal your thunder. So everyone probably already heard that and was like, oh, hang on. I know those guys.
Who?
Who? Sunlight? So I used to use them myself as a salesperson, as a sales manager, an operations manager, use their split pay. So what I was really excited about as a salesperson is their rewards program. I know that sounds kind of cheesy for me to be excited about, but I mean, as a salesperson, you're incentivized by financial rewards potentially. So not only are you making the sale, but you're getting points within their system to buy merch. And I no lie, bought both my kids toys through stuff I found. I think I got my daughter like a piano, a little toy piano, and the other one like an art thing to draw. And so it's really cool that like Sunlight does that because no other lender does it. And besides the stuff like that, for me as a salesperson, for the homeowner, they have really competitive rates and dealer fees. Like it's very easy for a homeowner to pay their bill, understand what they're getting into. They make it friendly and easy to use. So you as a contractor know I'm using a real lender who's going to be helpful to my homeowner to be able to get the system they want at a payment they want, right? So that was incredibly helpful. And obviously, split pay. They offer split pay, which is great. So yeah, big fan of Sunlight.
I love that they have options for sales reps like that and allows them to have a lot of just freedom with how they use those rewards. I think that's a great incentive and really fun. Love that. So that all sounds awesome. So speaking of robust programs for sales outfits, I know GoodLeap has an exceptionally rounded financial program and a technology platform for installers. I actually have experience using GoodLeap on the design side and on financing, and I thought they were great. So would love for you to share with our viewers about GoodLeap.
Yeah, I didn't know you used it before. That's cool. All right.
Yeah. In my installer days, we were big GoodLeap people, but
all right,
it's a good platform.
that's a good one to be big with. So GoodLeap, they're really the cream of the crop. The things they claim to be best at are approval rates. So the likelihood that you're going to get declined as a homeowner elsewhere is up there. GoodLeap, the way I see it, is they're looking for ways to buy deals to make them happen. They're looking at all the credit bureaus, not just one, to try and find that person's best score to try and make a justification for giving them a loan. So approval rates alone put them hand and fist above everybody else. Not only that, but it's super easy to use. You probably experience it yourself. You could be a day one new salesperson or a veteran that's been doing this for 10 years, and the platform is seamless, incredibly easy to use. I mean, it's really so easy a caveman could do it, I guess you could say. So that's what I loved about it when I used it. Um, the thing that they admit to being is hard to get on their platform. Candidly, they're not going to shy away from that, and it's for good reason. Because another really big selling point about using GoodLeap, for me at least, is that once you're done installing a system, you don't have to send them a USB thumb drive's worth of pictures to show that you actually did the job. They scrubbed you hard enough on the application process to know, okay, you're a legit contractor, you do good work, you have a history, I trust you. So when you go and install this job, I'm going to pay you next business day. Go on to your next job. Don't send me any pictures. We're good. So that might change though. And this is not, I'm not breaking any rules by telling this. Everybody kind of knows they're getting into TPO. There's going to be some pictures involved there, obviously, but they're going to minimize that. Try and stick to their ethos of make it easy to work with. So really excited about what they do here moving forward.
Yeah, let me tell you, Josh, if I can figure out how to use GoodLeap, anyone can do it. So it is an easy one. um, so, all right. I think some of our installers out there that do commercial are thinking, are there any offerings for me? Like what's going on in commercial? So let's dive into Bild. What's going on with Bild? What are you excited about with Bild? And how does that benefit commercial installers?
Yeah, another cash flow tool that contractors can use to help them with larger orders, these commercial jobs. So they are not an end user financier. They are not going to finance your customer system. What they do is they help you pay for equipment. So typically, we're limiting you to 30 days to pay for equipment. You ship it, get it. You have 30 days to get paid by the end user to pay us off. Again, putting you in a negative cash flow position. You might not be recouping all of that money in time to pay us, and that could be painful. So what Bild does is they take the contract that you have with a customer, look at it and say, oh, okay, so you get paid by them enough at 120 days max. It might be 110, but 120 days is their limit. They'll say, cool, we'll pay BayWa on your behalf. You pay us $50 for every $10,000 borrowed as an interest only payment. And then once the end of the term is up, pay us a balloon payment for once you get paid from your contractor for the rest, or from your customer for the rest. So what that does, it gives them some breathing space to be able to take on some of these bigger jobs, give them the confidence to bid on some of these bigger jobs, and then not worry so much about, well, how am I going to pay for material later? So really excited about that tool. I think it's going to be really useful, especially for those contractors who get in now and understand Bild now, because if they're bidding on these jobs, they can include the cost of using Bild, because it's not free. There's no such thing as free money. But if you're factoring that into your cost during the bidding process, you're not having to take out a margin later. And it's not super expensive. I just explained it's $50 for every $10,000 borrowed. So just be mindful, but build that into your bid form. And if you need help, we're totally happy to help you out with that.
Yeah, I love that, that offers breathing room to commercial installers, because as we know, commercial lead times can be a little bit more challenging, I guess, than residential. So that's awesome that Bild offers that. All right, last but not least, let's talk Sunnova Shop. So I know this program has some upcoming changes just coming up the pipeline. So can you just share with us a little bit about this partnership and what's to come?
100%. Yeah, everyone's heard of Sunnova. They are, if not the biggest TPO provider, one of the biggest in the country. So, ultimately we partnered up with them to help them both out on their own install side, but also help out their customers in getting special pricing on Sunnova equipment. So split pay is available for a handful of customers that they are already onboarded with. And you already hinted at it. They're trying to do something a little bit unique with the domestic content that starts September 1st. So I think it's probably a good time for me to pass the baton over to David, who's way better at talking about that stuff than I am.
David, thank you so much for stopping by to talk with us about domestic content. So first, I think what's most important is if you could just give some brief context to our installers, just in case they're not in the know or they're not aware of some of the new policies being enacted with domestic content.
Yeah, absolutely. So under the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is now 2+ years old, there was a clause in the commercial section of the tax credit incentive programs around domestic content. And this was designed in parallel with a domestic manufacturing incentive. So there's a sort of two-part around basically to spur more infrastructure growth in US-based manufacturing. So on the one hand, governmental funds designed to incentivize companies to invest in new infrastructure, new factories, new manufacturing in the US. And then on the consumer side, tax advantage opportunities. So a lot of installers are familiar with 10% ITC or PTC. That's the investment tax credit or production tax credit. But rather than the cap federal 30% tax credit eligibility, now you've got an extra 10% specifically for utilizing a certain amount of domestically manufactured product. So when this news first came out 2 years ago, it was huge. And everyone was like, how do I get that? I got to take advantage. That's 10% of the entire project. Free money from the government. That's fantastic. Well, there were a lot of details about what constitutes domestic content. How much of it do you need? What's the threshold? How do you verify it? Right. And these rules are actually still not finalized. There have been 2 rounds of guidance published by Treasury, but it's not finalized yet. That'll probably come in early 2025. But the important thing to note is that it is under the commercial tax code, which means it has to be a commercial entity that is the asset holder for the long term of the project. So this has been the biggest area of confusion, I think, for the installer base is a lot of residential contractors want to take advantage of it. And they're talking to their homeowners about it. But a homeowner is not a commercial entity. And so the workaround on the residential side is through the use of lease products, right? Because you've got a commercial entity, which is the finance company that owns the equipment, owns the asset of the solar system. They're the ones that can claim that 10% rebate. And so a residential installer utilizing a lease finance program can participate in utilizing domestic content, but they're not directly receiving the tax credit, nor is their homeowner customer doing it. It's the lease company that's leveraging it. So that's the difference between if it's being done by a commercial, standard commercial contract, where the owner of the system as a commercial entity is directly getting the rebate. On the resi side, it's going to be the finance company that's doing it.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see where there could be some confusion there for installers when they're trying to look into
100%.
this. So yeah, I'm really glad that we have some clarity on that just to start this conversation out. So now I'd love to hear, David, how this relates to Sunnova and how can installers from any facet capitalize on this opportunity?
That's the core of this, right? So if the only way a residential system can leverage the tax credit is through the financial company that's offering a lease and is holding the assets, then it really starts with that lease company defining the terms. It's not up to the installer to pick and choose. It's up to the finance company to say, these are the products that must be installed in order for me to be eligible for the tax credit. Right. And this is an important inflection point right now with those guidelines not being finalized. We're making our best bets to say these are the projects that will qualify once the final guidance is met. And the manufacturers are stepping up and saying, we're producing product that is compliant. We're assigning a domestic content value to the products. And a company like Sunnova is saying, great, we want to specify those products. We're making the choices based on the manufacturer guidance of if you take this microinverter and this piece of racking or this optimized solar edge inverter plus optimizer with these racking components, can we get to the 40% domestic content threshold? If yes, then we'll be eligible for the tax credit. So they're basically taking the hard work of planning and equipment specification away from the contractor, the installer, and just putting it onto their domestic AVL and saying, thou shalt use these products because these are the ones we need to have installed in the projects in order to recognize the tax credit opportunity. So Sunnova is really the first one to roll this out. And that's what they've done with their September 1 effective date is all new originations are being requested / demanded to be utilizing these domestic component pieces of equipment in order for them to be able to leverage that tax credit. So the installer must use those. It's not a choice, but I think the challenge is going to be, is the supply chain ready for it? The manufacturers are just rolling this out. Distributors like BayWa are just beginning to place purchase orders for them. Are we going to get them in time to supply into these new projects? It really depends on how fast the dealer network sells these new programs and rolls that out. That's we'll have to see kind of how that works out. But as the opportunities are rolled out, the incentives in place for selling these lease programs versus loan or other that would not apply for the domestic content, we'll have to see how fast we can roll those domestic content products into the channel, get them into the jobs.
It sounds like Sunnova in this case, and correct me if I'm wrong, is almost taking a counseling stance as well as being a financing partner, like helping installers decide what products they are going to be using. So it's almost like more of a partnership than it was maybe before, would you say? Or would you say it's still like, pretty usual partnership type of thing?
No, I think it's a step further. It's a commitment basically to this is important to us. We want to offer it. And as the first one, we only kind of have that example. But and Josh maybe can speak a little bit more to this. But I think other companies that offer a lease program are going to perhaps have two offers, right? Here's a domestic content lease package, and here's a non-domestic lease package. And maybe they have different rates, maybe they have different incentives in place. But the long and the short of it is, if they say this is going to be a domestic content program and package of equipment, they have to ensure that documentable domestic content product is what is sourced and installed in the project. So distribution has to work really, really closely, hand in hand with both the finance company and with the installers to ensure supply chain integrity, right? I'm sourcing this domestic content product SKU and exact item that comes into my warehouse from the manufacturer. It has a bona fide, documentable 17.6% content, whatever contribution. That's what I'm shipping to the customer. I've got a paper trail that says that's what I sent them. And the package is physically marked with the correct identifiers. It says that's the product to use. And then the installer has an obligation to make sure that's the one that goes onto that lease job, not I grabbed a different stick of rail that looks the same, but actually had domestic aluminum rather than non-domestic, right? This is what matters. So we're working really, really hard to make this as simple and clear and easy for all parties, because we think it's essential that we're supporting these programs and we're showing up as the best partner we can, both upstream and downstream, to make sure that these products are getting installed, that they're verifiable, and the documentation is there in order to collect the tax credits on the back end.
Awesome. Josh, do you have anything to add to that? Or if not, it's totally fine. We can move on.
Oh, I totally do. Yeah. So David alluded to already, there's going to be different strategies from each of the lenders, right? Sunnova has taken a compelling stance, and I really commend them for that, to go all in. Like they're saying it's domestic and, nothing else. There's flavors of other ones, right? I'm not going to name names because none of them are partnered. I'm not going to give you guys free marketing right here, but some are saying it's a mix. Some are saying, no, we're not there yet. Some of them still don't have a plan, which is fine, because to David's point earlier, the rules are still kind of in limbo, right? And it would be really dangerous perhaps to take a stance. But, being Sunnova taking it, I love the fact that they did it. And you know what, we could, talk about it all day if we want to, but I think for us as a distributor, it's kind of hard on us, right? We've got a hard job here to help make sure we're aligning ourselves with our lending partners to get them the equipment they need. So maybe, and I'm kind of saying this jokingly, but typically when we kit a job, we wrap it in clear saran wrap, maybe, or whatever it's called. Maybe for the domestic stuff, we wrap it in red, white, and blue stuff just to really make sure we know it's domestic versus not domestic. But maybe I shouldn't run a warehouse, actually.
We like our green shrink wrap, I have to say.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, fair. All right. Deal.
I love it. Awesome. So David, what's next? How do installers take advantage? What do they need to do? And why should an installer take advantage? And what is maybe BayWa doing right now to support this initiative?
Let me start with the second part of that. What BayWa is doing to support this initiative is we are taking steps to segregate and manage our data and our inventory according to that level of domestic content. And we're making it super crystal clear, both for our internal stakeholders, our salespeople in the system. They can see at a glance whether a given item or SKU in the system has domestic content or not. It's going to be super easy, searchable, tagged and flagged. For our installer partners, that's going to be translated into super clear visual information on our web store. When you go and you look at this microinverter versus that microinverter, one will have a US flag on it and say right on there that it's domestic content compliant, and another one won't. So it'll be really easy to see which one you should be sourcing from us for a given project. And we'll make sure that we're aligned with the lease company's AVLs. Like we said, Sunnova is the first one to require it. We know exactly which products are on that list and which are not. So our sales team will be able to advise on that. But again, we're making it very visually easy to access on the web store as well, so that it's crystal clear. And then when you receive the product, the manufacturers have some designated labels, and anybody that we encounter when we receive the product that is not making the labeling absolutely clear, we're going to add some more labeling to it to make sure that there's no mistaking it once it's in your warehouse. The worst thing that could happen is you buy domestic rail and non-domestic rail, you put it in your warehouse, and then the guy that's loading the truck in the morning has no idea which is which. That's a reality that installers are going to have to face and deal with here. We want to make that as easy as possible for people to be successful. So that's what we're doing. In terms of those choices, I think it gets back to understanding where you fit in this overall opportunity. If you're selling a Sunnova lease under the terms that Sunnova has rolled out starting September 1, you have no choice but to specify the domestic content products. Now, that's not every product on the whole equipment bomb. It's very specific ones that get them to the 40% threshold that they need. The rest of it can be sourced according to the rest of their AVL. But if you choose an Enphase or a Solar Edge inverter system, if you choose a Unirac or Iron Ridge rail solution, you have to pick certain SKUs that are on that AVL. And then we're going to make sure that it's easy to find those SKUs from us, or you tell us it's a Sunnova job and we know what to source. That's how we're making it easy. It really shouldn't be up to the installer to have to go and research in the market to figure out. And if you're not doing a Sunnova lease, but it's a regular residential loan, you don't have an opportunity to leverage that tax credit. So don't bother wasting your time looking for that. I think that's the message I want to impart to our listeners. Make sure you know who's going to be taking advantage of that tax credit, and they're the ones that are calling the shots on this.
That's such a great point, having an understanding of who you're partnering with in that sense, because we don't want installers to waste time or resources or money when it's not necessary. I think that's an awesome point, David. I think it's also funny, Josh, I know you were jokingly saying earlier about the wrapping, but it does sound like that it is so important that labeling and logistics are met here, because if they're not, then, there's a lot of things that could go wrong with it. I just personally never thought of the importance of the logistics on that side and how it could play in here, but it sounds like it's really crucial here to have that ironed out and understood with warehouses and installations. So I think that's a really good point as well. David, thank you so much for jumping in with the domestic content piece. Josh, coming back to you for our last question here before we take it to the Q&A. So with all of this talk about financing programs and offerings, interest rates play a huge part in this. So what are the current trends in interest rates? How are they affecting the popularity of TPO leases and PPA leases and all the different types of loans offerings?
That's a really important question. Thank you for asking that, because we've noticed over the last year and a half as interest rates went up, TPO became more of a viable option. Interest rates go up, make it more expensive for a homeowner. Then leases, you're going to have a lower payment. More homeowners are attracted to that. Typically, when I first got into solar, leases and PPAs were more attractive for folks who just couldn't get the tax credit, period. You had two paths. Do you get the tax credit? No. Okay. Here's a third party option. You do get the tax credit. Okay, here's a buy option. You get a loan or cash. It's yours. Now you have flavors of all. There's a gray area because ultimately depends on what the homeowner wants, which we can get to in a second. But interest rates, I am not a betting man, but I like to keep an eye on what people think, what the market thinks, where people are putting, if people are putting their money where their mouth is, and it would appear there's a really good chance we're going to have a 25 bip decrease in September, and possibly up to 4 more decreases through the rest of the year. It's looking more like 2, so 3 total through the rest of the year, including September, but 5 is possible. I've actually heard from one of our lenders that they're more leaning towards 5 now as opposed to 3. So interest rates do look like they'll be coming down. However, based on the conversation we're all having now about TPO and the domestic adder, at what point do rates need to come low enough to make the switch back to non-domestic product make more sense with a loan versus, the 10% adder and domestic product with a TPO? So I'm really interested to see how that plays out. I would love for interest rates to come down because that just allows for more purchasing of solar, period, more glass on rooftops, et cetera. But I think how the TPO piece plays out is going to be really quite interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, we are in the business.
Can I jump in?
Oh, yes. David, please jump in.
Just a quick addition to that. I think it's a really good point. And as Josh is saying, it's a lot of speculation right now because we don't know what the math is actually going to be. But there's a lot of smart people that are running the numbers and looking at this. And I also just want to make sure that our installers hear and understand that domestic content product is not typically the same price to procure because it's not the same price to manufacture as the imports. If it was, we would be a massive US-based manufacturing already. Right. So we know that there are challenges there. The reason for the incentive and the tax credit adder is to try and level the playing field, make it competitive to source the domestic product. Right. And that's also why the investment from the federal government in the manufacturing side to try and help us compete with low cost manufacturing from other countries. So there's a really interesting math problem there of cost of money, cost of manufacturing, cost of equipment with what's the end goal? Is the end goal ownership and the lowest cost of ownership over 20 years, 30 years? Is it the lowest monthly payment? Is it a net neutral on your electric bill? Those are not always going to equal the same solution. And so that's really where it's important that the installers and the homeowners are talking about what are your financial goals with solar. And if we're not having that conversation, we're kind of missing the point, right? Understand the motivation. They're all great motivations. And to Josh's point, I want to see more glass on roofs everywhere. I don't care what your motivation is. I want us to go solar. So figure out the one that's going to make sense for you. If you're in it for the economic return, that's going to be a different answer than maybe energy security, right? And the choices that you make around that. But I think it's important to understand that domestic content product is going to cost more upfront. It's the reason the incentive is there is to help it balance out, but it's not a level playing field. So there's going to be differences and nuances there.
Love that. Yeah, thank you, David, for jumping in there. I think that's a lot of really awesome information for our installers to think about when they are going through this process. Awesome. Well, we're through the meat of the webinar. Thank you both so much. I'm going to jump into the questions here. We do have a couple here from a few people. I'm just going to quickly Let me just read a couple. Okay, we have a couple about the financing programs, which I think would be really good. So we have someone asking about split pay specifically. So we have, how does split pay impact cash flow for solar installers? And what are the benefits compared to traditional payment methods? I think you already kind of went into that, Josh, but maybe just elaborating on it a little bit more would be good.
Yeah, for sure. I think what they're asking really is that second half of the question, and why would I do split pay versus not? Because yeah, split
Yeah.
pay, like I said before, it's going to help speed up your cash flow. You're getting paid by the lender what's yours. You're not having to go
Yeah.
pay someone else after that, right? You're actually using your lender as your accounts payable. So maybe you don't need as much accounts payable team. I don't know. But really, how it differs from traditional methods, whether that be terms, using your credit card, or paying cash on delivery, is that this helps not only you get that money that's yours and know what's yours, and you keep it and apply it towards future looking things, but also it helps your distributor. It helps us
Yeah.
out. Guess what? If it helps us out, it probably helps you out too. You're going to be less expensive to handle because our insurance only covers X amount. Now maybe we don't need as much because you're using split pay. We're getting paid quicker. And that also means we have cash in hand quicker. Maybe we're able to negotiate a little bit better with you. So I don't want to put that out there too much. My salespeople might come attack me after this call. But at the end of the day, it's useful. It makes us bond together better and offer you better services because we are tied more together at the hip because you have this really valuable way of speeding up your cash flow. So hopefully that helps. I think really it's just a matter of doing good business practices is what this speeding up of your cash flow does, and doesn't have you in this situation where, again, you're taking today's payments, paying off jobs from 30 days ago. You're getting today's payments and getting to apply it with forward thinking. So that's kind of the big difference. Hopefully that helps answer that question.
Yeah, I think it's also just really important to note that just for whoever also is thinking through this question, BayWa RE is here for our installers. We are not in business unless you are in business. So split pay is a really big deal for us because it allows us to be better partners to you. And so I think that's why this program specifically is so important to us and to Josh and to David and to a lot of other people, is because it allows us to just offer better resources so that you're able to succeed at a higher level than you were before. So hopefully that answers your question. So we have another one about loans and leases. I think that you, Josh, and David could both maybe jump in on this and help answer this one. So someone asked, how should installers decide between recommending a loan or a lease to their customers, and what factors should they consider? Josh, do you want to start this one, and then I'll jump over to David?
100%. Yeah, I guess I could actually piggyback on what David said earlier that really caught my attention. And that's, ultimately you want to do what's right for the homeowner and their financial goals, right?
Yeah.
So loan or lease, it shouldn't really be up to the installer, so long as it's what the customer is looking for. Are they looking for a lower payment? Are they trying to beat the payment they have on their utility bill? Well, that might make a lease more reasonable. Are they trying to tackle some tax appetite that they have? Well, then utilize the tax credit. Let's go with a loan, or pay cash, obviously, and reduce your tax appetite. Yeah, there's lots of different ways to look at it from a homeowner perspective, because ultimately, yeah, solar could do so many things for you. It could save you money, give you that independence from inflation of utility rates. It can give you some resilience because maybe you have storage, power outages are frequent in your area. There's lots of different things solar does for you. The finance question is just one more to ask a homeowner. Hey, why are you doing this? And sometimes in that discovery phase for you as a salesperson, you're asking them questions they haven't even thought about themselves. So you're really there to kind of help be that consultative, voice in their head. Kind of like what we like to do at BayWa is we're consultative focused, want to make sure our installers are in business, doing good business, and then that keeps us in business. Same with your homeowners, because ultimately your homeowners are going to be your biggest advocate. Like, hey, Josh sat down with me today and asked me some questions that were maybe a little uncomfortable, but only because I haven't thought about it yet. And now that I see it in that light and I see what he's asking, it helped me identify that I want this for my rooftop to save me X or, this, that, or the other. So that becomes a referral for you later on down the road because you did the right thing and made it about them, not about what you're offering. You made it about what the homeowner needs are. So I think that's the big difference between trying to decide what product you're trying to find out for homeowners. It's up to them.
Yeah. David, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this question?
I think Josh summarized it really well. I think if we're not taking the time to understand the financial and emotional or I guess personal reasons to adopt solar, we're kind of missing at least half of the reason that we're there talking to the homeowner. And as much as salespeople might be incentivized to push a particular solution or product or incentivize in a certain way, at the end of the day, the most meaningful sales are the one that add value. And homeowners will refer you to the next customer. They will invite you back to their home to do service or to expand their system if they had a great experience and if they feel listened to. But if we don't give them that chance to tell us what they want, how are we ever going to guess, right? If there was really only one size fits all, it would be a much simpler world. And there just isn't, right? And we know that because of all these different offerings. So it's really, I think, incumbent upon all of us to help educate our homeowners and our customers on what the opportunities are, but to present it in a way that really is addressing their goals and their needs. When I talk to my family members about solar, the first thing I say is, what is your financial goal? Are you in this to buy your next 30 years of power? Or are you in this to add equity to your home? Or are you in this to just reduce your electric bill? For me, those three questions starting out really sort of send you down different paths in terms of the solutioning. And that's a good place to start. There's a lot of other great questions to ask, but I think it's a good place to start.
I love this conversation because I think that it is really important for installers to utilize that conversation with homeowners to their advantage. And I also think that installers not assuming what the homeowner needs and instead asking not only benefits the homeowner, but also benefits the installer because it does create a more trustworthy and positive relationship that'll last longer. So I love both of your points on this. I think that there's a lot to take away from that. We are at time. I know we had a couple other questions in here. We can reach out to you outside of this webinar and answer those for you. I'll get back to you guys on that. But I just want to see, Josh, David, do you have any final thoughts to wrap us up before we kick off this webinar, or anything you want to add before we bid farewell?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered a lot of content here. Let's hope that you learned something. And if you do have some outstanding questions, feel free to reach out. I mean, we'll have my contact information in the end of this, so you could, ask more about finance, about split pay. Just don't ask me to run your warehouse because I think that's going to be a problem for David. But yeah, no, thanks for stopping by today. Really had a great conversation with you two and David. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, pleasure. And yeah, we are here to, as you said, Jordan, we're in business because our installers are in business, and we're here to add value. And we love to consult. We love to offer advice and answer questions, demystify. That's a big part of what I do. I spend my time talking to installers is just to help clarify, this very, very complicated realm of policy and industry changes. So love to do that. And happy to have shared some thoughts today.
Yeah, I think that we can all agree that it's never the same thing every day in solar. And I think the really awesome thing about David and Josh is they're both so well versed in what's going on in the industry as well as what's coming up. So if anybody on this call ever needs any, advice or has any questions, our team is full of experts like David and Josh that are very happy to sit down with you and walk through those things to make it just a little bit more clear. So you're not as confused as me with split pay and direct pay. You don't want to be like that. Good thing I'm in marketing, but awesome. Well, thank you both so much for joining this webinar, and we'll look forward to the next time we all meet.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, everybody.